This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
So, let's take a look at how do we power pray. In these first two slides, you're probably going to have to double click to get through I don't know why it is, but it is. But I want you to take a look at Psalm 90, because we're going to be parked in Psalm 90 today. And if you have your study guides, you'll see in Psalm 90 a prayer of Moses. And he begins with this first verse, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. You have been our dwelling place through all generations. What a way to start. The psalm was probably composed toward the end of the 40-year period that the Israelites were wandering around in the desert. So for 40 years, they had been out there, never having found a home, and just kind of wandering around. And this first statement speaks volumes, because most of the Israelites at that time, in this group that had wandered around in the desert, most of them had never had a dwelling place. Most of them had never had a place they could call home. They'd been in the desert for 40 years. Think of how many kids had been born during that time and were raised in that time. There were some of those people in that group who were now almost 40 years old or 40 years old and had never had a home, had never been to a place they could call their own. All they had known was wandering in the desert. It was a way of life for them. That was their life. But Moses' observation that God was their dwelling place is a thunderous affirmation of their dependency and trust on God. And what happens in our lives when we are climbing and all of a sudden we go into these stall modes, we're a lot like some of these people that were around in the desert. We're just kind of wandering around, we don't know where to go, and we are just lost in a desert. And it's all we seem to know, because it seems to go on for so long in so many of our lives. But when we realize that we're not where God wants us to end up, that we're not where God's going to finish with us, then we begin to understand the desert is not my home. The desert is the process of getting to where God wants me to be. And prayer begins with that attitude of recognizing, God, I am so dependent on you. You are my dwelling place. Throughout all that's been going on in my life, you really are my dwelling place. You're my home. This situation that I'm in, this desert that I'm in, is not my home. This is not where I'm supposed to be. And so, you are my dwelling place. Prayer must begin with that attitude. If God isn't your dwelling place, if He isn't the center of your life, the focus, where you need to be, if He isn't that, then why pray to Him? If your life isn't wrapped up in Him, if He isn't your reason for being, your number one source, your number one priority in your life, then He isn't a dwelling place. And in fact, what He becomes for so many of us is He becomes a Walmart. Just a place to go get stuff. And so we go and we say, God, I need this, and God, I have to have this, and God, I want this, and God, please give me this, and God, if I don't have some of this, things are just going to fall apart in my life. God, and that's what God becomes. He becomes a shopping expedition for us. But if He's where you live, if He's your dwelling place, if He's your existence, then He can and He will accomplish His purpose and His plan for your life.